just going to chat to you a little bit about prisons, which is your work for today. And what you are going to have to remember is that prisons have been around for a long time. So in Anglo-Saxon times, Norman times, there have been prisons. However, the difference is in those time periods, they were only used to be waiting for your trial. So you've been arrested, maybe caught by the hue and cry, you've gone to be waiting for your trial. That's what prison was. So it changed over time. When they stopped hanging so many people, they started to use prison as a punishment. So that was in the 18th century, basically. Prisons are punishments, and they are also very corrupt. Prison wardens, people who work in prisons, weren't paid. The prisoners had to pay them. So you can imagine you could pay them for better food, you could pay them for a better living space, you could pay even have somebody do your sentence for you, or you could pay to have your pet with you so you don't get lonely. However, you can imagine if you are a poor person, prison is going to be pretty horrific. You can't afford to have decent food, so you are in these awful conditions. You're going to get sick a lot. You have to pay to go to a doctor. It's a vicious cycle. You're living in these bad conditions, you're going to get sick, you can't afford to pay a doctor. The cycle will go on. So that was one major problem. Another one is that didn't matter what crime you committed, you were all put in one place together. If you stole something, you're going to be in the same room as a murderer. Clearly not the best situation. Another issue was that women and men were in the same room together. Now, casting no aspersions onto male characters, but men tend to be more violent, especially if you've committed crimes. So that was very difficult. They then were encouraging people to keep apart, and that is what Robert Peel did. There were also other reformers, John Howard and Elizabeth Fry. They weren't sort of politicians or anyone like that. They took it upon themselves to help out these poor people living in prisons, and it was more from a charity point of view. So Elizabeth Fry especially, she set up schools for women and children, because that was another problem. You were leaving prison, had no job, no qualifications, you're going to end up back in prison again. So she majorly changed working conditions, living conditions in prisons. And the final thing you need to do today is you need to have a look at Pentonville. So this was like the first proper modern prison in Pentonville. And they had separate places for men and women, separate places depending on the severity of your crimes. And they also encouraged the silent system. So if you've seen Tony Robinson with me, he shows you this clip in the video. So you wear a kind of cap and you can't see who is, kind of like blinkers on a horse. You can't see who's around you. You can only see straight ahead of you. So that was encouraged because they didn't want them to make friends in prison, didn't want to get gangs together to commit, more crimes, whether that was in prison or when they left. And the silent system. You were not allowed to talk to anybody. You can imagine the kind of psychological damage that can do to your brains. I mean, I know we're all stuck at home, but we're with other people, most of us. We can chat to people. And that was something that they were not permitted to do in prisons. So I hope that was a bit more helpful, and you know a little bit more about what to do with your lesson today. If there's any problems, send me a message on Show My Homework and I will help you out. And I will see you on Monday.